It's time for Windows Weekly. I'm Jason Howell filling in for Leo. We've got, of course, Paul Thurrott from Sweden, Mary Jo Foley from her secret underground lair. We're going to talk all about the current state of Windows 10, devices as a service, Google's Chromebook ad that's throwing a ton of shade at Windows, Surface Go that's hitting store shelves tomorrow, and a whole lot more. Windows Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly, episode 580, recorded Wednesday, August 1st, 2018. Paul's Dark Mode. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Moogsoft. Reduce IT alerts and tickets by up to 90% guaranteed. Visit Moogsoft.com to learn more and to sign up for a demo. Hello, everyone. It's time for Windows Weekly. This is the weekly show where we talk about Windows, well, and Microsoft, all the stuff that Microsoft is doing, not just Windows, although today looks pretty Windows-focused. So if you're a big Windows fan, we got you covered. Actually, I'm not the one that really has you covered. I'm Jason Howell. I'm filling in for Leo, who is gone. I like to say he's gallivanting. He's gallivanting in Tahoe, I think, right now, possibly floating in the water, taking it easy, like we should all strive to do. But you're not getting your Windows information from me. You've got the two people that you always tune into this show to follow. First of all, of course, Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com, who is now in Sweden, right? You were not in Sweden last week.
Hey, last week I was in Berlin. What just happened?
I don't know.
Nope.
An earthquake.
One thing we didn't warn you
guess.
about was Mary Jo's cat is a menace.
Oh,
My cat hates this show. I don't know why.
Oh, you
started. You can punish the cat.
I've tried, and then he's worse.
Yeah, that doesn't always work so well. Mary Jo Foley, all about Microsoft.com, calling in from your secret underground lair that has a cat.
Yeah. Yes. A bratty cat.
Okay, we understand. A couple of weeks ago, I was doing Tech News Weekly, and we were interviewing somebody, and suddenly his dog comes into the picture and then climbs up onto the couch behind him and then starts licking his head during the interview.
Geez. That's hilarious.
You know what it is? Animals hear you talking.
Yes.
And because they're the center of your life to them,
sure,
they assume you're talking to them.
Of course.
So I'll do, like, for example, I use the Duolingo app to learn, languages, and I do the lessons on the app. The cats hear me talking in French, and obviously I'm talking to them. So they walk by, and they kind of like their tail hits my nose as I'm trying to do the thing on the app. Like that's just the mentality of a pet,
It is. Center of their life is you. That's why when the second your key hits the door, they're right there. Most important thing. So obviously you have nothing else better to do at that particular moment than to pay all of your attention to them and for them to disrupt. Cool. Well, thanks for allowing me to be on the show. I'm pretty positive this is my first time on Windows Weekly. So,
Wow.
take it easy on me.
I'm just stunned by that
so weird.
fact.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. I could be proven wrong, though. Any long-time fans of the show, prove me wrong. Go into the chat room, which is open right now, and let us know. But like I was talking about just a few minutes ago, Windows is a big theme in today's episode. Apparently, even though it's called Windows Weekly, you guys don't talk about Windows every single episode beginning to end.
Well, surprising.
There's always some Windows. Windows creeps into our lives.
Yes.
Usually in the form of an unintended update or some kind of a reboot into a blue screen.
Right. I was going to say the blue screen that appears every once in a while. Is the blue screen now? It's been a while since I've lived my life in Windows. It's been years at this point.
Sure.
Blue screen of death. Is that still as prevalent as I feel like it was back in my heyday?
That's an excellent question. No, no, I would say it isn't. Not at all. Although
but now there's green screens of death.
Yeah. Well, for insiders, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also just the blue screen that most people will see when the system reboots and it's installing an update, which is a different kind of a blue screen.
Right. Okay.
Not a
sad blue screen. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Windows 10, where are we now? This is the question in the doc, and I'm very curious. Where are we right now with Windows 10?
We are at an inflection point. How's that?
Yep. You ever see the movie? Yeah.
We're in this weird place right now where we're not, they are not quite done with Redstone 5 yet, which is the build of Windows 10 that's going to come out this October or so. But we're already starting to see people testing the next release, the next feature release, which we thought would be called Redstone 6, but actually is codenamed 19H1. Rolls right off the tongue. 19H1.
Can I ask you a question about that, Mary Jo? Do you mind?
Yes.
Just the name, because I don't mean to get hung up on what is possibly the smallest detail of all, but obviously the version numbers are such that the one that came out this spring was called 1803. 18, of course, is the year. 03 is the month. The version we're working on right now that precedes the one you just mentioned, Redstone 5, is probably 1809 in keeping with previous versions. So now we've got 19H1.
Yeah.
Why?
Which I think will be called 1903 because Microsoft so far hasn't changed the thing they said like a year ago, which was we're going to, they didn't use the word RTM, but RTM, the release in March and September, right?
Yep.
So that's why it has those numbers, 1803, 1809. And I think they'll still be a 1903. But you know what? I actually like that they're changing the code name here because it's really confusing when you call something the April update, and some people don't get it until August.
Yeah,
So
I mean, put
like,
another way,
why?
The April update was supposed to be completed in March and wasn't,
Right.
and then didn't ship to most people until May. Right. so obviously we're going to call that thing the April update.
I know. And it's good to give it like half also because at the same time they're building Windows 10 for HoloLens and Windows 10 IoT, and those things are on a whole different time frame and schedule. Right. Yet they're still called the spring update or the fall update or the April update, even though they're like on a whole different schedule. So I like this move to year
I feel,
half.
Right. So in other words, right, it's the first half of the year. It doesn't upset anybody because it's spring somewhere and fall somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
It gives them a little bit of wiggle room, right? I think maybe it was a bit of embarrassing when the 1803 release didn't ship until 1805, whatever it was. I think that might play into it. But it just kind of happened, right? They didn't really discuss the name. They just said, hey, skip ahead, guys. This is the thing. We're calling it this. And so do you think they've dropped the Redstone naming convention that has been with us for quite a while? Okay.
I do. I think Windows Central had something a few months ago where they said, we think they're going to totally drop the Redstone naming convention and go to this half thing. And they were right. That seems to be what they're going to do now. And you know what? Because the Windows client engineering team is now part of Azure, they're kind of more practical, right? Less whimsical, more like, they're thinking like, guys, people just want
definitely use
updates.
less whimsy over in the Windows thing.
We could.
For sure.
We could.
Yeah, it's been a little whimsical.
Yeah, so I think they're just being more kind of like, let's just be utilitarian about this. It's a feature update. We used to call it Service Pack 1. Now we're going to call it 19H1. Here it is.
Okay.
So I do believe Redstone. I think this is going to be Redstone 5, I think, is our last Redstone build.
Well, they'll be missed.
Yeah, we get kind of used to Redstone. It was easy in headlines, right? Now you have to write Windows 10 19H1 build blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, what is that? Right?
I feel like naming and versioning is something that Microsoft has gotten wrong with Windows for several years now. And it's just, they've created a mess, and so you have the situation, and, Mehedi does this over at my site, for example, or anyone writing for a blog, you have to call it something. So you say something like, well, Microsoft delivers the first cumulative update for the April 2018 update. And my response to that is, no, that's not what that is. It is Windows 10 version 1803. You could call it the latest version of Windows 10 if you wanted to. The name of the update is not the name of the system, and it's also not the version.
Right.
And I think I know it's kind of a weird pedantic writer thing to worry about, but we're not running Windows 10 the April 2018 update. We installed the 2018 update, and we're still running Windows 10, but now it's on version 1803. And it's goofy that now now they're like 19H1 and it's like donk donk donk. Like seriously, how many different ways are we going to identify these things? Apparently, one more.
Why can't we have dessert code names like some other company?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or destination names like another company. You know,
Yeah.
Or like
landmarks.
destination names like Microsoft used to use, like Chicago
Right.
and Detroit.
Yeah.
You
Those
know,
were the
that
days.
stuff.
Easy
Yeah.
to remember.
Why? Well, and beyond that, why is this a lesson that Microsoft continues to not learn? Like, it's not like this is a new thing. This has been a criticism for a very, very long time that Microsoft doesn't know how to name its products very well.
Let me invite you into my personal hell. It goes something like this. For everything we just said, that we just talked about all these different version numbers and names and whatever, there are other parts of the company that name things completely differently, including other versions of Windows that either are client-based, like HoloLens or Surface Hub or whatever, or server-based, like Windows Server, Azure, whatever. There's Microsoft 365 and Office 365, and they're on their own kind of little release cadence. And they have different updates that go to different parts of different things. And this thing is like a giant tornado, like at the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, and things are just flying by, and they're all doing their own thing, and it's just kind of a weird mess of inconsistency, and that's it's weird. And like there are efforts, you see it every once in a while. It's like we're going to take Microsoft Outlook and we're going to try to make it more consistent across platforms, or we're going to stop having like 19 different communication tools. We're going to consolidate it down to 17, or whatever it might be. And I just feel like they never take that final, like, just do it right.
Yeah.
You've got this thing, I shouldn't have to look at a name and wonder what it means.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Get a decoder ring in the mail to decipher exactly which version of Windows you're on.
No, and then they sometimes go the opposite way too far. Like Outlook is a great one, right? Like, people say to me, I'm having a problem with Outlook. Okay, which Outlook?
Yeah, please be more specific. Yeah,
There's
exactly.
so
There
many
are
different
17
things this could
versions.
be. I'm like, do you mean Outlook.com? Do you mean Outlook, the native app that comes with Exchange? Do you mean, Outlook Mobile on iOS, or Outlook Mobile on Android, or Outlook on Windows 10? Like, what do you mean?
On the web,
You just said Outlook.
it's incredible. Yeah, they're all a little different. You got to keep us on our toes.
Apparently, make you work for your money.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the two.
Yes.
The two
Sorry for that,
Redstones. I'm still going to call them Redstone just one more time because it's just way easier. So they last week, right after Windows Weekly, launched a new fast ring build of Windows 10 Redstone 5, and at the same time, the first build of Redstone 6, which, as we said, is I still can't get used to it, 19H1. And right now, those two things are the exact same feature set, even though they're two different builds, because they're just at the beginning of where they're splitting the fork. And so everything that's in one is in the other one. And there were actually some new features that went to both rings. One of them that is kind of cool, if you think about how it works, is mixed reality flashlight. So, if you're using a mixed reality headset right now, this gives you like a little portal to the real world while you're in your virtual world, so you can look out and see, oh, someone's ringing the doorbell. Like, you can actually see what's going on. And
it's nice to be able
this
to
is
do
cool because they keep talking about mixed reality and augmented reality being able to work together, and this all becoming one big thing. And this is kind of a step towards that, I feel like.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, the headline writing part of me would say that this is the release that put the mixed reality in Windows mixed reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because they're actually mixing realities here for the first time.
They are.
Yeah.
They also are promising something that I don't want to get too excited about because I'm afraid it isn't really going to happen. But they said that, I'm looking for the exact wording, how they said this, but it's basically, we're going to try to make it less annoying and give you more control over when you update, which would be good if that actually could happen.
Listen, I think it's very important that we celebrate a company for belatedly fixing a problem that it created, right? So in other words, Windows 10, infamously, we were joking about this before we started the show, or at the start of the show, I can't remember, but is known for just installing updates whether you want them or not, whether you're in the middle of doing something or not. And this is Microsoft getting very aggressive about trying to keep everyone on the same version and whatever. And here we are. We're literally right now today, 3 years into the Windows 10 era. And they have announced that they're going to they're going to use, what are they going to use, AI or something?
Yeah,
to
they
fix
said
this?
a new trained model to more accurately predict when the right time is to restart a device in the name of improving the update experience. Okay, I hope
Here's an
this
idea.
works.
Are you
If the,
podcasting?
if the user is typing or is moving the mouse cursor around, they might be using the computer.
Maybe.
I'm not an AI expert. I'm not a professional developer, but I feel like I could handle for those two occurrences.
So yeah, that's actually I kind of downplayed it in my write-up because I'm like, you know what? They've been trying to fix this forever, and they keep saying it's getting better, and I still feel like I will pick a time, or I will be like, okay, here's my active hours, or here I am doing something, and it'll be like, do you want to update now or later? And it just does it anyway, and I'm just like, okay, it doesn't even matter what I check in the checkbox here. So I want to be optimistic, but I'm also being cautious on that feature.
When I was learning to program in Delphi 20 years ago, I wrote a joke program called Visual F-Disk. And you may remember that F-Disk was a command line tool that would format your disk and, do all that kind of stuff. And so the idea behind Visual F-Disk was that it would be a visual, be like a visual front end. But it was a joke application, and the idea would be like you'd go to format C and you'd say, are you sure you want to do this? And then the guy would say no, and it would say now formatting C. And that's kind of like the Windows Update experience is today, right? It's almost like it's a joke, because like you said, you do everything you think you can do to prevent this thing from installing updates. And you wake up one morning and it's like, welcome to the new Windows. You're like, what's just happened? And it's been a weird, there are maybe a small handful of things that I think are big negatives for Windows 10. Most of it is pretty positive, but this forced or unintended, or however you want to describe it, updating thing has just, it just really grazed the whole thing out a little bit. It just makes it hard to explain to people why it's good, but I hope you like to update a lot.
Yeah, I feel like it's gotten a little better, but I still feel like it's not fixed, and I'm sure it's a hard computer science problem. I've heard that that's a reason things happen sometimes, but I still feel like, come on, guys. Like, this is one of the reasons people are afraid to go onto Windows 10 and get these regular updates, is because it's like, hey, I'm in the middle of doing something and suddenly it just restarts by itself.
Well, and what keeps them from just wanting to appear, place on the screen some sort of a pop-up that says, hey, you have an update? Like, I know at least on the Mac OS, I get that up in the right-hand corner. Although, now that I'm saying it out loud, I know what I always do when I get that, which is try me tonight. And then tonight comes and it doesn't happen. And the next day, it's the same exact thing for weeks on end.
So this is how I can tell you don't use Windows. Because what you just suggested is logical and it would work great. And that's not how we do things.
But I mean, in the end, I end up putting it off anyway. So if the purpose is to update these things so that they're more secure or whatever the reasons are, like, I'm preventing that from happening. But then again, it's my machine. I suppose I should be able to do what I want.
I'm pretty sure my wife and people like her are to blame for this, because my wife works on a computer like any normal person, and I would go upstairs every once in a while back when she was using Windows 7 probably or whatever. And she says, I have some problem with my computer, and I'd look at it, and it'd be like 117 windows open. There'd be like over 100 tabs open in Chrome. And then she has pushed these, you need to update Windows Now dialogues down far corner, like under the tray. What are you doing over here? And she's like, oh, these things would pop up in my face. I'm trying to get work done. And I'm like, Stephanie, you have to do this for a reason. It's not arbitrary. The joke's on us, because today it is arbitrary.
I know that all too well, though. Like, even I know that it's very important to do these updates, but almost always when that window appears, now is not a good time.
Oh,
exactly.
So, putting it off till later, but then my computer isn't on later, so then it just pushes it to the next day when now is not a good time, and it just keeps happening. Rinse, cycle, repeat.
There's a thing that can happen on kind of an application by application basis that makes this a little bit easier, right? So web browsers now universally, if you shut down a browser and you reboot your computer, come back even days later, whatever it is, the next time you bring that thing up, it's going to come up with the tabs that you had open before, and you don't lose that. That's a huge change. It makes such a huge difference. And then when you think about productivity applications like Microsoft Word or whatever, hopefully they're sophisticated enough now that they're auto-saving the background, which it does, and you're saving things in the cloud anyway. It doesn't matter, and if the thing reboots, you're not losing data like you did in the past. And that's your success rate is going to vary based on the application and the application types that you use. But most modern, web browsers and productivity applications and things like that, the truth is it's not as bad as it used to be. But again, your mileage is going to vary, and so some people still rely on older applications of whatever kind because that's life, and those are going to be the ones that are more susceptible to some kind of corruption of. The story we don't really see that much anymore, but you've been working on something for hours and hours, and you wake up the next morning, your computer's rebooted, and that thing you were working on is all screwed up.
It's gone. Yeah. Well, and like right now I'm using a Pixelbook, and Chrome OS is a really great example of how this can work really well. When I do get an update on Chrome OS, I tap it because I know it's going to, it's not going to take any time at all. It's literally the screen's going to go off. About 10 seconds later, the screen's back on. And about 10 seconds after that, everything's restored and I'm back to where I was. So it really costs me nothing in time to do that or effort.
Yeah, and even to test recent or, up-to-date new features in Chrome, I've been running the Canary version of Chrome on my Windows PCs for actually maybe a couple of months now. And this thing updates daily. And it's one of those things, you see the green little, buttons up in the corner and you click on it, says update Chrome, you're like, yep. And everything just comes back.
Yep.
Yep. That when something works that reliably over time, you learn to trust it. And I think the problem with Windows is that we've been using Windows for, decades, and we kind of don't trust it. We especially don't, and I don't mean Windows in general, but just that update process is something we've learned, whether it's, accurate or not today in 2018 or not, it's to kind of not trust that thing, to be afraid of it.
To be hesitant, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, so that's Redstone 5. I think, Mary Jo, you have something in here about Windows Server tied to Redstone as well, right?
Oh, yeah. So this week there have been a couple of builds. There's been a new client build and a new server build. So on server, we're still on the Redstone 5 track. There isn't that's an interesting question. What are they going to call the new server build? Right now, what they call Redstone 5 in the server world is Windows Server 2019, and they also call it, well, I think they've called it this, 1809 if you're on the semi-annual channel. So every time they do a new build of server in the Redstone pipeline, they issue both the long-term servicing branch, which is the on-premises Windows Server, and then the semi-annual channel, which is the regular feature update kind of thing. So, they're still getting new features. They get something called Systems Insights, some new capabilities for that feature where you can do all kinds of things like latency optimized network congestion control. Woo! And they also added support for more easily deploying Kubernetes, which is an orchestration tool for containers on Windows Server. So they're continuing to build out the whole feature set for that. We think what's going to happen is they'll RTM, even though, again, they don't call it that. We still do. Both Windows Server 2019 and Redstone 5 at the same time, and they'll start rolling them out this fall. So they're kind of in lockstep there with those two things. But they haven't yet done, as far as I know, anything for the next feature update of Windows Server beyond that. But then Paul wrote something too about your phone, because that was something that happened late last night, right?
Yeah, Mehdi actually wrote this. I installed this today. Like many people, I've been waiting since they announced this stuff back in May to try this Your Phone thing. So in the current version of Windows 10, there's a phone interface in settings. And when you go to configure a phone and link a phone to your Microsoft account, you basically send a text to your phone. And then depending on what system you have, you'll be prompted to download a different app. On iOS, it's the Microsoft Edge web browser. And on Android, it's the Microsoft Launcher. And the idea behind both of these things is that you are getting some kind of continue on PC functionality. So if you're browsing on the web and you later go to your computer, you can pick up where you left off. And they're trying to implement this across platforms. It doesn't actually work very well. So in the next version of Windows 10, they promised that they would have a Your Phone app. So it's a standalone app. It's something that can be updated more frequently that will basically let you link your phone to your PC, and you'll be able to see the photos that are on the phone, the messages, the text messages. You'll be able to send text messages, receive messages on the computer, and then also access your notifications. And I can't get it to work.
It doesn't exist though, right? It does. Is the app in the store or not in the store?
No. So the app appears in the latest build of Windows 10 on the Insider Preview RS5. So what this tells me is that it will be included in that release, right? Because it is a store app, they'll be able to update it regularly. Like if this was an integrated feature of Windows 10, like the settings thing, they could only update it when the OS revs twice a year. So that's good. So if it doesn't work properly or something's wrong, they can fix it. That's fine. I'm having an issue, and this may just be my issue. And I have two computers. I'm traveling, so I have the laptop I'm using here, which is a ThinkPad, and then my Surface Book 2 is on RS5, and it is buggy and has huge performance problems. And it's the type of thing where sometimes I'll click on something on the screen, and it doesn't work. Nothing happens, and okay, whatever. And I work on something else, and then a minute later, the thing will fly out. There's something wrong with it. So I probably need to blow it away. It's been running all these beta builds of Windows, so I'm not going to blame anybody. But I don't know if your phone is not working because it's just not ready yet or because it's my computer. So actually, if anyone is watching now and can say, please let me know, because I'm probably going to blow this thing away tonight. It's been really frustrating.
Well, I went back and looked at the wording in their blog post, and they definitely are hedging when it'll be out. It's like coming soon. So I'm like, so does it even work yet?
The other issue is just that whole Android versus iOS thing, right? So on Android, Microsoft can insert background processes and things that will make this a more seamless process. On iOS, the bar is a lot higher, and it's going to be harder for people to get that kind of level of integration, and probably impossible. So I'm going to test it with Android when I can first. I mean, I think that's going to be the better experience, but I'm curious what the way, again, like you said, the language is kind of iffy. It's like when you link your iPhone, you can do this, this, and this, but they have 2 paragraphs of description, and it's a little bit different for Android than it is for iOS. So I'm not 100% sure. I take it to be a good sign that they put it in this build, I think is the main point. So even if it doesn't work, they've been kind of quiet for the past 2-3 months about this. So the fact that this thing just appeared suggests to me it's going to be in this release.
Me too, because I was thinking they're starting to get close to when they need to stop adding features to Windows 10 Redstone 5, at least until, like they can keep adding them because of the constantly updating stuff, but they have to pick a point in time where they're like, okay, this is the frozen feature set. And I'm like, we haven't even seen your phone yet, right? So
it's an app. I mean, the good news is, people have asked me about this. And what do you think? Are they going to cancel it or push it to the next release? And my response until now we see what they're doing was, it's an app. So they could literally finalize RS5 and then just put it in the store.
Yeah, they could.
If they wanted to. I mean, I think putting it in Windows is the smart move, even if it's not quite there, because they can keep updating it. And by the time the public gets it, it will probably be in good shape.
Yeah. I really want to try this one out. Jason might even try this one out because
absolutely,
this is a way to make Android work better with Windows, and a lot of us former Windows Phone people are now Android users, and it would be nice to have the phone experience a little more tightly integrated.
Apple has this obviously between the Mac and iOS, right? You can and the iPad. Your text messages will appear on any of the platforms, and you can send them from your Mac, whatever. Google is moving toward this with Chrome OS and with Android. They released the web version of the Android Messages app. Works on Windows too, but you can basically at your Chromebook or your Windows PC or your Mac, probably Linux, whatever, send and receive text messages through the web interface, and it's instantaneous. It works great. A little harder for Microsoft, right? They don't own any of the mobile platforms. So this is a harder computer science problem, as we keep saying. But I think they've done kind of an ad hoc thing before. There's a photo companion app, remember, you can download for iOS or Android. I think making a singular experience that's built into Windows is the right way to go. So I think this is the right approach.
Same.
Yeah, Microsoft apps on Android have become the type of thing that as they are released, like I don't run a Windows system, so this would have to have some sort of feature set for me to use it on a daily basis outside of, connecting it to Windows. But their apps are always high quality, and like it's gotten to the point to where Microsoft releases an app on Android, and I'm definitely checking it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a time where that probably wasn't the case, but now I do.
No, that's definitely true. And there was a time when, the emphasis was going to be on Microsoft's mobile platform because it was their platform, obviously. They've kind of woken up to the reality of the marketplace. And I think making Windows 10 work better with the phone that people actually use, or the phones, is smart. And they do. And again, it's a little hard. They don't own those platforms, but I think they're doing the best they can do given the circumstances.
Sure. And I think that's Redstone in a nutshell. There's other, I think. Well, there's the Redstone 5 ISOs. Did you already
this is a couple of things just real quick. So it's odd. I talked about the inconsistencies over at Microsoft and Windows earlier, and this is a nice example of that. There's an engineering effort that's occurring to create the next versions of Windows 10. And there's a Windows Insider program. There are several millions of people who participate in this program, and they're testing these things. But there's a huge inconsistency over there on a number of levels. Right? They release fast ring builds fairly regularly, usually every week. For the past version or two, they've only released slow ring builds very infrequently. And usually tied to a slow ring build would be the release of ISOs. What the ISO gives you is the ability to go right to that version without having to install another thing and then upgrade it. This is the first time they've released an ISO for Redstone 5, and that's really odd. We've been testing this since February, I think, was the first version, right, from Skip Ahead, something like that. They have never released an ISO for Windows 5.
They didn't have many slow ring builds either. Like, is this the first or the second slow ring build of Redstone 5?
It's the first or the second. It is. I don't remember. It's one of. It's. So, I feel like in an engineering type processy, there should be some predictability to it, and they just kind of don't do that. So anyway, I don't know what's happening, but anyway, there is an ISO available for our Redstone 5 for the first time, so that's good news. This OneDrive client story is kind of like this too. There's not much to say to it, just that the OneDrive client has evolved over time. It's gotten pretty sophisticated, I think, on this. Let me see how it looks on this computer, but I think it's pretty similar. Yeah, so now when you right-click on the little cloud icon, you get this really nice kind of interface that describes like the files that have synced most recently, and it's just a cleaner interface. So this update is just to make that even prettier and nicer looking. You can see the little menu or toolbar at the bottom that doesn't exist in the current version. That's nice. It's got the new Fluent design system going on, with which Mary Jo finds to be crucial to her daily workflow. And it expects battery saver mode. So when your computer hits, I don't know, probably 10% or 6% or whatever the number is, it goes into battery saver mode. And when that happens, a number of things shut down in the background. And now OneDrive will be one of those things, because you don't want your OneDrive files syncing when you're in battery saver mode. It will kill the battery. OneDrive already respects things like a metered connection. So if you're tethering off your smartphone, you'll get a little pop-up that says, "Hey, we're not going to sync the files right now because you're on a metered connection." It's smart. So it's just it's kind of a small thing in a way, but it's just an indication that this sync client is getting more sophisticated as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. But why can't you buy more storage? You knew I was going to say that.
Yes.
This comes up every show, pretty much. So Microsoft just has it. I'm really surprised they haven't introduced the ability to buy more storage if you want to.
Great amounts of storage. Yep.
Right. Why?
It's because they're tying it to Office 365.
Yeah.
Right.
They want you to subscribe to that, right?
But you still you're kind of at a 1 terabyte ceiling at that point. So I guess I would accept them saying, look, the first terabyte you need to get Office 365. But once you have Office 365, you can pay us extra on an annual basis or monthly, depending on how you pay for it, and you can get more storage. And it should be any amount of storage, and they don't do that, and I don't know why.
And it's weird. Like, people are like, "Oh, who needs a terabyte of storage?" Well, I know a lot of people who are dying to buy more storage. You do, right?
I would buy another terabyte right now.
A lot of people. Yeah. No, if you save video to your OneDrive or a ton of photos, it's like, you're going to start running out of room.
I'm at the point where I have to kind of remove things, just to keep under I'm getting up there.
Yeah.
It will happen, right? So Google announced sometime in the past 30 days that they're upping I think they doubled the. No, I think that's arbitrary now. I think you can buy any. I think you can pretty much buy whatever you want. That's a new development. Whatever. I don't remember the exact details, but it's more. along the lines of what you're asking for. So I think Microsoft will follow suit.
Me too. I do, but it's surprising they haven't done it yet.
Yep, I agree.
And then OneDrive client, this would be the update that we're kind of talking about. Does this tie into that specifically? All right.
That's it. That is literally. It's just this is the thing that's built into Windows 10. So they're just kind of evolving that. The Microsoft Edge bit is actually really interesting, and this is one of those things. I feel like this was promised as long ago as 3 years ago, but the idea here is that you can use the Windows Hello technologies to sign into your computer with biometric type things, right? So you have a fingerprint reader, you might have an IR camera, whatever it might be, smart cards and so forth. The promise all along has been that we will use these same biometric inputs to authenticate us for other things, purchases, websites, that are secure websites that are, where the password is held in your Microsoft account or whatever. And they are actually adding support for what's called advanced, web authentication. Let me look at it. I'm sorry, I have to drag this window off the web authentication support. So this is basically the final piece in this puzzle. And what it means is that when you sign into secure websites now using Microsoft Edge, the browser that's built into Windows 10, you will be able to do a Windows Hello pass-through and not have to type in passwords or use a password manager. There's a password manager happening in the background, but it's kind of a nicer way to do that. So you know how if you do like a 2FA thing on an Android phone or an iPhone or whatever, you get like an alert and you accept it. Usually it's just yes, or sometimes you have to pick the number of the three numbers and just pick yes, whatever. It's a nice way to never have to type a password again, which is Microsoft's end goal. And I think when you think about it, with the web, that's probably the biggest storehouse of passwords anyone has, is all the websites and things that they access. So this will make that a lot more sophisticated as well.
Mm-hmm. And is that in Redstone 5, did they say, or is there any date tied to that? It is, right?
Mary Jo, they're working on it, and I don't know why you have to harangue me.
Coming soon, TM. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little sensitive about the timing of things these days. I don't know, some jerk.
It's because of us. We harass them, us and others who are like, hey, you said April, and now it's May 1st, and where is it?
And then they said, we never said that. And I said, really? Let's go to the tape. Or the 17 times you said it on stage in front of 5,000 people that was recorded is on you. Yep.
Yeah.
Then the April 2018 update, 84% of Windows 10 PCs. Is that a high number for?
That's
for an
very
update?
high. Yeah. So this is this last update, which ostensibly shipped in April, has been deployed to PCs out in the wild at a much faster rate than any previous version of Windows 10. In fact, I believe Microsoft concurred that it was literally twice as fast as the previous update, which was itself kind of a record setter back last fall. So it hit 75% last month. It hit 84% this month, and this is kind of like non-corporate PCs out in the world, because the number is probably a little lower when you factor in the ones that are managed by enterprises. But it's just such an incredible rate of speed, and for people like me, especially, and probably Mary Jo, who have been kind of critical of Microsoft's updating process. This is like their refutation of that and saying, but it's working. This has successfully gone out to all of these computers. It's crazy. And it is kind of crazy.
And do you think that's directly tied in, like the success of that is actually directly tied into this kind of automatic update, almost forced update sort of process? Or could they have seen this another way?
So this is something that's come up on the show before, and I guess the short version is Mary Jo and I get a lot of feedback from people, email and Twitter and wherever else, and we've heard of a lot of problems with this particular update compared to the previous two, which actually were very successful. So I don't know quite what to make of this.
I think they've just been more aggressive in pushing it to people. Yeah. And I think that's why it's on more PCs earlier. I do. I don't think it has anything to do with the quality. I think it's more just they pushed it harder.
Yeah. It's kind of like a UFO. Like you're standing outside, you see a UFO, and you're like, I saw a UFO. And then someone says, categorically, UFOs are not real. Science tells us that this is some kind of phenomenon. But you're like, but I saw a UFO, and it's hard to kind of get past it. So they have this data where they're like, look, this thing has gone out to a record number of machines. And I'm like, yeah, but I've heard from hundreds of people that are having huge problems with this.
Yeah.
Maybe I just hear from those people. I don't know.
Me and you both.
Yeah.
People who have the issues are more vocal.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways.
Yeah, no, for sure. Of course. But that's always been the case. And so what's interesting is that the previous two releases were notable because of the lack of complaints, right? When Microsoft would talk about the success they had deploying this to PCs and how they were ramping it up over time and everything, her and I both could say, yeah, that's exactly what we're hearing. It made sense. It's when the world doesn't make sense, so you kind of question everything. And so I don't know. I can't explain it. I mean, all I know is that I haven't seen this level of complaining since the anniversary update, which went out 2 years ago in July, August, or whatever. I think somewhere around that. And that's all I can say. All I can say is what I've seen. I don't know. Microsoft says it's going great. Microsoft would never lie, and I'm a liar, and I don't know.
Microsoft would never lie.
Never lie.
No, they would never do that. No company has any sort of
lied.
Personal interest in their business to have any reason to lie. What about this whole subscription idea of the PC? Is this the kind of the next direction that is this kind of going to be how it is the next time someone buys a PC, that they're going to have to buy into a subscription as they do that?
Well, so let me tell you a little of the background of this story. So I've been having a wild summer. I'll tell you, I've been sitting here for the past week watching all the sessions from Microsoft Inspire, the partner conference. I really know how to live it up, guys. Been watching every video day in, day out. And I can tell you, after watching many of them, that a huge theme at the partner show this year was this idea of device as a service. So Microsoft had many sessions on this, and what they're telling their reseller partners is in 2020, January 2020, when Windows 7 is at the end of support, we see the perfect storm happening. Everybody's going to be freaking out because they got to get off Windows 7 and go to Windows 10. But you guys, you partners, you know how you can make more money? Instead of just upgrading them, sell them a device at the same time. And don't just sell them the device and have them walk away. Make it a subscription. So this is the whole idea of device as a service. You say to a customer, and I'm talking about business customers here, not consumers, to be clear. Hey, what if you could buy your next PC, all provisioned, all set up for you, and we'll handle your patching and updating and make everything all great and nice for you, and you just pay us a monthly fee. That's going to be the pitch. And it's going to come from Microsoft partners who they're impressing this idea on, and from Microsoft itself, it sounds like. So Brad, who works with Paul over at Thurrott.
There he is.
There he is.
Hey, Brad.
There he is.
It's like we're in the Ring movie.
He last week discovered a name of something called Microsoft Managed Desktop, and he found a job posting where this was, and he's like, I don't know what this is. It's some kind of a managed service, but that's all I know. So once he got the name, I started digging around, and I found out this Microsoft Managed Desktop thing sounds like Microsoft's own device as a service type thing. So they're going, they've had Surface as a service, and they've been testing like financing programs and leasing programs, and they've been doing a lot of work around Autopilot, which is automatic provisioning of devices. I think what they're going to do is kind of broaden this and make Microsoft offer a service where you could pick and choose different Windows 10 devices, not just Surfaces, and you could have them bill you monthly for the device, the Windows updating service, and the provisioning, all like the whole end-to-end life cycle of this thing in one monthly bill. The part I don't know is this going to be something Microsoft has its partners also sell to customers, which I think they would have to, or partners would mutiny? Or is this just something Microsoft will only sell to the very biggest enterprise accounts maybe? It's not a consumer thing. This is a business type service. But it sounds like it is coming, and they're building it. I don't know when they're going to announce it. Maybe at Ignite, which is their big IT Pro conference coming up in Orlando in September, or even later than that. I don't know. One other tidbit on the Microsoft Managed Desktop service. Remember Bill, how do I pronounce his last name? Karagiannis, the guy who was the director of the Windows Insider program and the OS Fundamentals team, how he kind of just disappeared a few months back. And
that's right.
They were like, yeah, he's going to do some enterprise stuff. And they never said what. Well, I've heard from at least one contact, this is what he is doing. This thing. Yeah. So yeah, that's all we know right now. Like, people have been sending me a lot of queries. Like, what about, how are they going to keep the drivers up to date? And what about third-party software? How are they going to make sure that continues to work? I'm like, guys, I don't know. They haven't announced this yet. I don't know any more details than I put in what I've written. And they won't answer anything, obviously. They're saying no comment. So, yeah.
You know, it's okay. So I don't have too much to say about this, you know, Windows device as a service kind of thing. Other than people have kind of been predicting that Windows would be involved in some subscription across the board for any type of customer for many years. Okay, fine. It is interesting to me. You know, I mentioned the Surface Book 2 problems I've been having. And when you think about any PC, you typically have different ways to obtain software for it. So Windows Update will obviously get you the stuff from Microsoft. But most PC makers have their own software for updating the drivers and for checking on the health of the PC. And, you know, kind of seeing what's up and triggering support calls and so forth. But when you buy a Surface PC, that stuff all happens through Windows Update. And I was just thinking as you were saying that, you know, the one thing I wish I had on the Surface PC was that software, you know, that was kind of separate from Windows Update. It could be part of it, and, you know, Microsoft could do it inside Windows. But you almost need this thing where you can say, I just want to download this driver and get it anyway. And you can do that for Surface for sure. But I kind of like the, I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm just used to it. You know, Lenovo does this, HP does this, Dell does this. You get this interface that says your drivers are all up to date. And, you know, for me right now, I realize that Windows Update is sort of telling me that. But I have this uncertainty over what the problem is and a real uncertainty over how to fix it beyond nuking it from orbit, right? I mean, my basic response to any problem with the Surface is like, I'm just going to kill it and start over. You know, and I if they're going to do this kind of thing, the correct way to do this is to have that interface and have it be universal across all types of PCs and allow HP and Lenovo and Dell and everyone else to roll that functionality into this new, you know, either into Windows Update literally or some new thing or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and you know what? They've been doing that with Windows Autopilot, right? Like Dell and HP have been early in pioneering how that works. You know, what does it look like for HP to have a device automatically provisioned out of the box for a company? Right. And so it's not unprecedented that Microsoft could do that and work with those guys, right? I mean, it could happen. Actually,
I'm sorry, for individuals, the HP NVX2 that you have, the ARM-based one, right? One of the issues with an ARM-based PC is that software I just described does not exist. HP can't bring their x86, x64 software for updating drivers to ARM. It's not compatible. It doesn't work. So actually, those drivers come through Windows Update. So that's an interesting example of a third-party device where everything, well, not everything, but the drivers at least happen through Windows Update, which has always been kind of the dream that they would all work consistently. And maybe this is a step toward that. You know, yet another inconsistency in the Microsoft world, but they're kind of working toward making this a more consistent experience, regardless of what kind of PC you have.
And you know, the other thing that they could really sell the heck out of if they do end up doing this, which I think they're going to, is a big reason people are afraid of Windows 10 updates, as we've talked about many times on this show, is like the patching process is a mess, right? Like you get updates, sometimes they go away, then they reissue them. And, you know, just this week, there was a huge problem with .NET updates. They had to be revoked and then reissued. And there were people having all kinds of problems in different IT shops. Susan Bradley, who does a patch management newsletter, put an open letter out to Microsoft management and is like, guys, this is so broken. You got to fix this. Like, it's not okay. And if they could get this kind of a service going and could actually make, these feature updates and patches more seamless and actually work better, I think a lot of people would be willing to buy in. I do.
Yeah.
So
I
we'll
have
see.
nothing to add. That is correct.
We'll see.
Not only device as a service, but you also have an article here, Mary Jo, about desktop as a service.
Yeah.
Everything's a service nowadays.
I know.
Yeah.
And so my question on those two terms is, are these two things the same in what Microsoft's describing? Because at the partner show, they called it device as a service. But then this thing Brad discovered was called desktop as a service. And I actually think they're the same thing that they're talking about there. So I'm not exactly sure why the language is different, unless it's device as a service if it's a partner delivering it, and managed desktop, Windows managed desktop if Microsoft is delivering it. Maybe. I'm just guessing on that. I don't know why there's different nomenclature there.
And let's see here, a price increase for Windows 10 and Office 2019 for the enterprise. What's that all about?
Yeah. So if you're one of those people jumping up and down about Office 2019 coming soon on premises, yay, finally you can have an update since 2016. Here's the bad news. You're going to pay 10% more. Microsoft told partners this, and they've announced it publicly now, that the license for the client, the servers, and the client access licenses for the servers is all going to be 10% more expensive if you want to run it on premises. They haven't raised prices on Office on-prem in a long time, so a lot of people are like, they're just punishing us for running on-prem, and they are trying to shove us to the cloud. Yeah, probably, but it is happening.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's probably what's going on. As of October 1, the price increase will be in effect. And then on Windows 10 Enterprise, this is a little more complicated to explain, but there's two subscription models for Windows 10. Two plans, I should say, Windows 10 Enterprise E3 and E5. So they're doing some changes around the naming, and they're going to be increasing the pricing also of Windows 10 Enterprise E3 so that it costs the same as Windows 10 Enterprise. So right now, Windows 10 Enterprise E3 costs $84 per user per year. And if you ask me, what does Windows 10 Enterprise cost? I can't really answer that because it depends. It depends on volume license agreements that you have in place, whether you have software assurance and a lot of other things. But they did say Windows 10 Enterprise E3 is going to increase in cost to the point where it's the same as Windows 10 Enterprise. So if you have an agreement with Microsoft, that is something you should probably check with your representative or your partner who works with you on that, and see what you can do. That's also October 1.
I actually covered this story. I don't write a lot about the enterprise stuff, but I thought this was kind of interesting. And I agree with you that this is part of the push. They want you to go to the cloud. But yeah, I spent 45. I probably it's a 300-word blog post, I'm sure at best. I probably spent 45 minutes researching what is the price of Windows 10 Enterprise, and you can find out the price for E3.
Yep.
Which was what you described. I think it was $84 a year.
84. Yep.
84, and you cannot find out what the price is of Windows 7, Windows 10 Enterprise. And I did the exact same thing as you. That's why I'm laughing. I'm like, where is the price? It was just a weird morning. Like, well, yeah, exactly. I know I'm going to find it. It's got to be out there. No, it's not. It does not exist. It's like, how much is it going to take to get you into this car today?
Yeah, we'll see.
So I'm thinking it might be time to take a quick break, and then we can come back and get into this Google ad that I saw this morning for
that dirty
Chromebook.
Machine you're using.
Oh no! So this
dirty,
old stinky
reliable
thing.
machine.
Ugh. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But before we do, let's thank the sponsor of this episode of Windows Weekly, and we'll get back to that. This episode is brought to you by Moogsoft. IT people, you know how it is. When all those alerts and those tickets start lighting up your monitor, you know something's up. You aren't being productive. You're just stressed out. You have to deal with it. And obviously you have to deal with it now. It takes you away from a whole lot of other things. It's distracting. No mere mortal can analyze all those alerts and actually respond effectively to all those tickets. But there's good news. You can immediately reduce the noise with Moogsoft AI Ops. Moogsoft AI Ops is artificial intelligence for IT operations and does a number of things for you. Reduces your IT alerts and tickets by up to 90%, and that is guaranteed, up to 90%. Surfaces only actionable work items, and they basically do this by clustering events into correlated situations so that you don't have to, look at another alert or another ticket ever again. It's developed for the enterprise directly, specifically, so it requires no rules, filters, or models to maintain, and it integrates with your existing tools. Moogsoft AI Ops has your back. It's not here to replace you. Rather, it's here to make you the hero. Through machine learning, Moogsoft AI Ops will lower the frequency and duration of repeat incidents so you can get back to doing the things that you do best. HCL Technologies is just one example of how this is being used. They're a global IT managed service provider. Includes Moogsoft AI Ops as the event management layer within its award-winning Dry Ice platform. And this has helped its clients streamline operation workflows and reduce time in the detect to correct lifecycle of incident tickets. HCL experienced a 33% reduction in mean time to restore. That enabled them to support more customers, of course, with service quality while keeping operational costs low and efficiency high. With Moogsoft AI Ops, you can reduce your IT alerts and tickets by up to 90%. And again, that's guaranteed. Visit Moogsoft.com and you can get a demo and check it out for yourself. That's Moogsoft, Moogsoft.com to check it out for yourself. And we thank them for supporting this episode of Windows Weekly. So Microsoft comes out swinging, and it feels kind of familiar in a certain way, but they have an ad, a Chromebook ad. And
actually, it's Google who has a Chromebook.
Oh, sorry, not Microsoft, Google. Yeah, my apologies.
Probably so used to covering Microsoft, you think everything revolves around Microsoft, but actually,
it's like I talk about Microsoft every hour of the day of my life, so it's hard for me to shift gears.
Microsoft. Why does it always have to be about Microsoft?
No, this is a Google ad, but definitely Microsoft has its in its target as far as this ad is concerned. But, it's a cute ad. It's effective. What do you guys think of it?
I think we should watch. No, for whatever it's worth, at a high level, especially the things that they're complaining about are real. The things that they're touting that the Chromebook has as advantages are real. But I'm traveling this week, so I saw this story. We covered it. Someone else wrote about it on my site. Mahedi did, and Brad asked me about it. And I'm looking at the headlines, and everyone's kind of freaking out. My initial reaction was, company that competes with other company touts competitive advantage of their product in an advertisement. I'm like, what's the big deal? But I went back and looked at it later, and I thought, okay, I see the problem here. So the problem is, all of those pictures they show of Windows PCs are fake.
Yeah,
and they're all antiquated. There are Windows XP dialogues. That system has not been supported in several years. There's clearly Windows Vista stuff. That thing shipped in 2006. It's kind of weird, and what it reminded me of was the Get a PC ads that, I'm sorry, Get a PC, not Get a PC, Get a Mac, I guess, that Apple had back over a decade ago. I can't remember the exact years, but before the iPhone came out, through a couple of years after the iPhone, they had the, I'm a Mac, I'm a PC ads. Everybody thought those ads were really effective, but they were actually very deceptive, and they stretched the truth a lot in those ads. And I thought, it's interesting because Google could just tell the truth, and this ad would be very effective. But the little side story to this that I think is kind of interesting is Google just added, it's been spent 2 years adding Android support to Chrome OS. And you can understand the advantages of that, right? The ability to run Android apps on Chrome is huge. But you're also introducing the types of unreliability and uncertainty and insecurity that this ad is making fun of on the Windows side. And it's right now, this Android on Chrome thing is not just unproven, it's incomplete, right? There's still some apps that don't work very well in either in big windows or full screen or whatever it is. They don't this is a process, right? It's something they're doing. I think it's smart, but I think we haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the other half of that coin. And so the premise of the ad is fine. The weird faked screenshots of Windows and the Mac too, actually, I just don't quite understand what they were thinking. You know, for example, right there, like that shot right there. Yes, we do have things like that. It's not quite as bad as what they're showing. That window that you're looking at, though, that window, that thing, that in the middle of the screen, that window right in the front with the gray thing, that's something called Windows Basic. Windows Basic is what you used to get a decade ago when your computer wasn't strong enough to show the glass effects in Aero Glass. Nobody sees that anymore. That is an antiquated, that's gone from the earth, basically. Someone will chime in and say they have it on their computer, but even the most basic Intel integrated graphics chipset can display glass today in Windows 7. You don't see that screen, that display. It's just, like show Windows 10, guys. Don't.
I know. You have plenty of things you could have poked fun at with Windows 10, right? Like you didn't need to go to the old versions. You could show people blue screening. You could show lots of updates happening when people don't want them to happen. There are things they could have done to make the same point.
It seems like it was made by someone who is, has a vague memory of what Windows used to be like and how terrible it was. And they used that as the basis for like an advertisement, and somehow it passed through various OKs at different levels, and it became an ad they're showing on TV probably. And it's like, guys, this is you're complaining about a thing that doesn't look like that anymore, and isn't that bad anymore. And oh, by the way, you just added Android to your own system. My God, think about it.
Yeah, that's kind of a double standard for sure. And my experience with Chrome OS Android apps, like it's a halfway there sort of thing at this point. So that's a sticky thing. That's definitely valid. One thing that this reminds me of, though, is what you were talking about a little bit earlier, is about this like almost PTSD reaction to updates, right? Like we have a history, we have an experiential, past with these things, and that ends up giving us pause now. And maybe to a certain degree, that's what the ad is all about. Not necessarily that you're used to seeing these, that you see these now, these specific menus now, but here's a walk down memory lane of all the trouble you've had with these windows and
your
pop-ups.
Your eye starts twitching, your leg is twitching.
Exactly.
You're like, I don't ever want to see that again.
It's like maybe this doesn't happen as much now, but I've experienced that, and that really sucked. You're saying I don't get it over here? Great, I'll check it out.
Okay. I mean, I listen, we just spent 2 hours complaining about Windows updates in Windows 10. Right. So I'm obviously hypocritical, but there are huge advantages to Chrome OS. I mean, and they're real, and I feel like they have a good story to tell, and they should stick to that story.
Right.
It's and like Mary Jo said, you could make fun of the stuff they're doing today in Windows 10, and that would make tons of sense to me.
Yeah.
It's like, are you really going to go through this again? It would have been an interesting thing to say, to do the historical thing like you just described and say, here's how terrible it was over all these years. And now you're going to let these guys do it to you again?
Yeah.
Windows 10,
Don't give them any ideas, man. You're giving them a new ad campaign.
Well, I just, I mean, I back in the day, when the I'm a Mac, I'm a PC ads were out, I used to talk to the guys from Microsoft all the time and say, when are you going to respond to this? And it took them a long time. And belatedly, they came out with something called the Mojave experiment, where they went out real world. They set these tents up in Best Buy parking lots, and they showed people Windows Vista, but they pretended it was something else. Because the Apple ads were all on a Windows Vista. Yeah. Universally, people loved it. Like, it's beautiful. Is this a Mac? What is this? No, this is the thing you think is terrible because you watch these Apple ads, and and those ads were actually really effective.
I love that ad. I thought that was the best thing they ever did. And I'm like the only one who thought that, maybe. You and me.
It was a year too late. The problem was they waited too long. After this, they did something called I'm a PC. And that was more of a positive message in a way, because it was kind of just affirming the diversity of the PC. And it was like these people, like, with a Mac, in other words, like these Macs are all the same. But with the PC, you have all these choices. There are different form factors and different manufacturers and all that stuff. And it was just people like say, I'm a PC and I'm a PC. And we all have different. We're all different, And I really kind of like the affirmation of that, And I feel like what Microsoft should be smarter these days and should respond to this quickly, because the truth is Chrome has made inroads, and it would be silly to ignore this. It would be silly. And I hope that they respond. And I feel like there are effective ways you can respond to this.
I remember this.
Yeah, that's what I remember. That in France, yeah.
I'm a PC and I blog for Obama.
I was surprised to see Bill Gates say I'm a PC, though.
Did you think it was more of a Mac guy?
That was shocking. Yeah. Right on. All right. Well, let's see here. So Surface, I realize Surface Go is basically tomorrow's go time for Surface Go, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
So, you know what I think? So, I don't know if you're into cars. I'm sure Mary Jo is. One of the things I like about coming is they have all these different cars. And so one of the things you see here, if you're familiar with like luxury car makers like BMW or Mercedes, is they sell far more versions of cars here than they do in the United States. You see a lot of station wagons, for example, which you don't see in the United States. Little hatchbacks, 2- and 4-door hatchbacks, they don't sell in the United States. But you also see lower price versions of cars that they don't have. So if like Mercedes, for example, has like C, E, and S class sedans, in Europe they have A and B class as well. And it's because cars are just a lot more expensive here. And so the point of these cars, and actually this year for the first time, Mercedes is bringing an A-class sedan to the United States. The reason is car prices have crept up, and now they want to be able to sell another car that's going to cost between $30,000 and $35,000, which is the average price of a new car. How do we do this? The C-class is really expensive. We're going to introduce the A-class in the United States. You're trying to reach a mainstream audience. It's understandable why companies want to do this. So in the computer world, Surface is a premium PC brand. It's sort of like MacBook Pro or whatever. We want to reach a broader audience. We had lower prices. How do we do that? I feel like they've lowered the price on Surface Pro, on Surface Laptop as much as they can without compromising the device. And so their solution is Surface Go. And the big question here is going to be whether the small size of this device, because it has a 10-inch, 10.5, whatever, the 10-point-something inch screen, and the keyboard on the type cover is not full. 10.1.
Yeah.
It's small.
Yeah.
And so how does this thing fit in? Also, it's running a Pentium Gold processor. And how does that thing slot in, from a performance perspective? Is it going to be good enough to handle the types of tasks that people are going to want to do on this device, which needs to run the gamut from basic, like what I would call light productivity work, word processing, web browsing, email, to streaming video like Netflix or movies from the Microsoft Store, whatever it might be. I'm traveling, so I don't know. I don't have the answer. I can't tell you. I don't have one. If I was home, I probably would have one. But these are the questions, and we'll see. And so to hit this price point, to get the quality of the device itself, it's still made out of the same materials as the other Surface premium devices. They've had to cut corners in some ways, and the question is going to be whether those compromises are too much, or whether this will in fact open up the Surface product line to a much bigger audience than those people who can afford PCs that cost over $1,000.
Yeah, I am really interested to try it out. I did not get a review unit, which I kind of thought I wasn't going to based on some conversations I had with people there. I haven't been a fan of the Surface lines. Sorry?
The conversation was, no, you're not getting one.
Yeah. It was like, you know what? We would like to get you one.
Yeah.
I'm like, so, okay, I better buy one because that probably means I'm not getting one. So I have an order in for one. My order hasn't shipped yet. I checked, but I ordered it a while ago. So since it's supposed to go on sale tomorrow, I'm assuming it'll ship tomorrow. And I'm very interested to try it because I think I'm the kind of person, if there's anybody, in the tech press who would be like a typical user, I'm probably in that group. So I am very curious to try it. And once it's in my hands and I work with it for like a week or so, I will write a review, Microsoft. Hopefully it'll be the first Surface that I like in your whole product lineup.
Here's my expectation. It won't meet your needs. And the only reason is you're a writer. Yeah.
Right. The keyboard is small. It's small.
I think the advice I would give to you if I didn't know you would be like, look, you need to spend a couple $100 more to get a full-size keyboard and a bigger screen. It's still going to be fantastically light. It's going to be completely unlappable. I know that's the thing for you.
It is.
It's going to get much better battery life. I think battery life is going to be an issue on this device too.
I know. I'm worried about the battery life, to be honest, because they're quoting 9 hours. So when Microsoft with Surfaces usually gives you a number, the real life is about half of what they say. So I'm guessing battery is going to be at 4-5 hours.
Yep.
just guessing, because I haven't tried it yet. But yeah.
But this doesn't mean that this isn't the right device, right? So
right.
The thing, I have to kind of take myself out of my own personal needs or your needs maybe, and
Right.
think about what are the market forces that this thing is responding to. And it kind of does come back to this Chromebook thing, right? The notion that a lot of people have these really personal relationships with their phones now, and they can get a lot of the stuff they need to do on a phone that they might have done, 10 years ago on a PC. And so when they have to turn to a device that has a bigger screen and a bigger keyboard, it's occasionally. And maybe they need to write something that's a little bit longer than a normal email, or they have to actually open a spreadsheet or whatever it might be, but it's kind of unusual. And I think that that's what the market this is going after. It's the same thing as a Chrome, really. I mean,
what's funny though? They denied publicly, I believe, that this was a Chromebook compete or an iPad compete device. But I have found some references in various places from I believe it's from Inspire that they do consider this that.
The iPad one is tough too, because as a consumption device, something you're going to read on or watch movies on, that kind of thing, play games, whatever. The iPad is actually a stellar device for that kind of stuff. The iPad is a device that can play high resolution 3D games that look astonishingly good, that look a lot like the types of games you might play in, like Fortnite or PUBG or whatever, where the graphics are actually kind of incredible. This little Pentium thing with integrated graphics is not going to be able to do that. There's no way. And it's kind of it's kind of a niche within a niche, because the thing you are getting on this device is kind of the benefit we were talking about for the ARM-based PCs, which is like, look, it's going to be a little slow, but you can in fact run the full desktop version of Excel or PowerPoint or Word or Outlook. And just being able to do that is its own kind of benefit. Because on a Chromebook, you can run, the web apps. You can run the Android app versions of those apps. On an iPad, you can run the mobile app versions of those apps, but they're not as full-featured as the desktop versions.
Right.
They're going to run better, but they're also less powerful. Is there a market for the thing I just described? And this is the open question.
Right.
We're going to see.
The target markets are supposed to be education, first-line worker, and consumers, right? Those are the three target markets they've said they're going after with the device. So I'm really curious if it is the right device for anybody in any of those three.
It's still a question. And they talked about this very specific thing. It was the guy who is given a computer from work and does not want his personal stuff on there for some reason, because he knows work and sees it at any time, whatever. And he just wants something inexpensive, but not plasticky and terrible, that he can put his own stuff on. To which I would just kind of reply, okay, I got the need for that. But I still want I still want a keyboard I can type on. I'm curious. You're not as humongous as I am, so it's possible that this keyboard will work for you. I have gorilla hands. I don't know.
No, I know. When I saw that keyboard, all I could think was watching you type on it, because I can type on it, but I'm like, it's still kind of squishy for me. But I'm like you, on the other hand, I don't think you can type on it.
It's like watching an adult try to ride a big wheel. It's just you're kind of oversized and you're on, or you go to your kids' first parent-teacher conference, and they have those little chairs for the kids with the desk that kind of wraps around, and you try to squeeze your tremendous hulk into the seat. You can't, because it's designed for like a 5-year-old. That's what it's like. That it's like I'm gonna have this little computer on my lap, like a little. It looks like a Casio watch or something. I don't know.
It would be hilarious. We got to do a video of you using this.
Yes. Is it right? Is it lappable? Is it palmable? It's going to be the question.
Is it palmable for you? Is it lappable for me? I'm excited about the potential lappability of this, because it's smaller. I feel like maybe it will be lappable. And like I said before, it's more evenly weighted device. So it doesn't feel like it's going to tip over like a lot of all of the other surfaces.
You probably said this already, but when you saw this thing back in whenever that was June or whatever, did you actually sit down and put it on your lap immediately? Did you literally do that? Yeah.
Yes, I did. Like the first thing, I'm like, oh, give me this.
What was the reaction of the crowd when you did that?
It was like, oh God, here she goes with the lappability thing again. And then I'm like, actually, it feels like it might be. And everybody was like, oh, Yeah.
That's funny. I never thought to sit down with it. I was like, I'm going to type on it like this.
Yeah.
It's like little tiny
you will.
keys.
I mean, it looks like to me like it's about as lappable as any 10-inch tablet that has a keyboard accessory attachment or whatever. Are the keys on this on the signature type cover? Do they have any travel to them, or are they those little like rubbery like nubs?
No, they have. I don't remember the exact number, but if the I want to say the Surface Pro laptop and Book 2 are probably 1.4. These are maybe 1.1. It is a shorter throw.
Okay.
But one of the interesting things that has occurred over the past few years is that I've actually found myself really changing to prefer what in the back in the day we would consider an unacceptable kind of a key throw. Like I really like the short. I think the Apple keyboards go a little too far, but
yeah, I agree.
You know, like when the like the laptop I'm using right now, it has these kind of scalloped. It's not even really like a chiclet key. It's the scalloped keys. It's a ThinkPad. They have a long throw. It's probably 1.5 or something. It feels a little too. I'll keep using car analogies because I know you're both car guys. Like it's like when you use a stick shift and it's like too long of a throw on the stick.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a performance vehicle. So when you have a short throw, I'm actually it's weird. I'm kind of I literally prefer that now, right? For it to be a kind of a short. There's always going to be like a sweet spot, and it's not Apple. You know, it's north of Apple, but it's south of where most keyboards are. So honestly, the key throw is not going to be an issue on this. It's the key size.
And it's not the rubbery kind of like flat thing, because those drive me insane.
It's a scissor mechanism. It's exactly the same thing that you see on the Surface Pro type cover. It's just a little smaller.
Got it.
The trackpad is big though. I think they said it's bigger than at least I forget which model of Surface. It's bigger than that.
So I don't know. About
you know, I know.
Yeah,
I know. You've been kind of like, is it though? I know.
Well, I have a phone. I brought over. They had remember in the room they had all the other devices.
Yeah.
So they said that, and I said, "There's no way that's true." And she said, "No, it's bigger." And I said, "Bigger as a percentage or bigger?" And she said, "Bigger." And I'm like, "Nope." And I grabbed the Surface Pro type cover and I brought it over. I'm like, "It's not bigger." You know, it's about the same size. Yeah. But it looks humongous because it's smaller.
It's a big. Yeah, it's big because of proportionally how small the keyboard is. But you know, I am cautiously optimistic about it being lappable. I feel like I know I obsess over this, but I feel like especially if you're targeting this at education, people are going to use this on their lap. They are. It's for they're like K through 12. I'm like, these are going to be kids, you know, young adults who sit down cross-legged and want to type on the thing. Everyone's like, nobody types on their laps. I'm like, well, journalists do because we're always kind of on the go, and you know.
Well, they stick us in a room with no desks.
I know. You know, just last night. Last night I was trying to use the HP NVX2 on my lap like an idiot because I was at a place that didn't have a table and I was trying to do something and I was just like, oh my, this is so like frustrating, you know. But,
yes.
Anyway.
I used this is a long time ago now, but when I went out to Colorado, I was sitting through we were going on a college tour for my daughter, and you know they were doing a presentation, so I'm just a chair. There's nothing to do, and I'm crossing my leg, and I was trying to use that exact device, and I used whatever I think it was a ThinkPad X1 Carbon as a base on my knees, and then I put the other thing on top of it. And you know, as most people would do, you spend $1,500 on a lap stand, so you can use this $800 laptop. It was a really efficient way to type.
Yeah, Alex swooped in with the Surface for me. I think to give me a sense of the keyboard and kind of the feel of the keyboard. But this one would have a little bit less travel. It sounds like
the one you're using has a little bit more.
Right, exactly.
But I would say honestly, the typing experience on a device you have in front of you is ideal.
Yeah,
it's because it's a cover and not a hardware, you know, like a hard base. There's a little bit of flex, but honestly, I think that's a wonderful keyboard.
Yeah, it feels nice to me. I like the feel of these keys. What I hate, like you were saying, the new MacBook Pros. I can't stand those things. It's just
it's you know, someone I don't remember who said this, but this is correct. They're loud, but the issue isn't the loudness; it's the tone of the sound. It's like this Chinese water torture.
It's like a smack.
Clack, clack. It's you could almost imagine being in a quiet room where you'd go over and strangle a person who's typing on this thing, and all they're doing is typing us in an email. They're not trying to annoy anybody, but they're so loud and the wrong kind of loud.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. Agree. So that's obviously the Surface Go, and then let's see here, firmware updates on the Surface Pro.
Yeah, just real quick. So, Mary Jo, I don't know if you looked at this.
I saw it, but I didn't write about it. Yeah.
The Surface Pro one is the craziest one yet. If you look at the list of firmware updates, they just ship for these 3 machines, and I assume over the coming days they'll do the rest of the lineup. I believe they have replaced every single driver that exists on that computer in one fell swoop. I have never seen an update like this ever before. And, it improves a number of things, obviously, but what these things are really aimed at is this Spectre meltdown mediation. And I'm kind of, I just described how I'm having these huge performance problems on the Surface Book 2. Now, this is not, actually, no, it is one of the machines in this list. There is I had this problem before this update, so it's not this, but I'm kind of wondering, we know because it's been written about so much that any mediation of these vulnerabilities is going to incur a performance penalty, And so I'm curious if the people who are using these PCs, Surface Pro, Surface Laptop, and Surface Book 2, are experiencing performance problems now. I have never seen sets of firmware updates for any Surface PC as big as these ones are, and especially the one for Surface Pro. I believe it is literally every single driver on the computer. It's insane.
Wow. Yeah.
This goes on and on and on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Should we shift to video games?
Yes, we should.
Sure.
Playing video games on Sony, PlayStation, Nintendo, but what's up with Microsoft? Seriously.
We're never going to get a sales figure for the Xbox One ever again. And we can only speculate. Speculation is fun, but the Sony and Nintendo both released their quarterly results, and when they do, they release numbers for their video game systems, and they're both doing fantastic. And so the PlayStation 4, which I think first shipped in 2013, has now shipped over 83 million units. They're about to surpass the entire lifetime sales of the predecessor PS3, which basically encompassed 10 years worth of sales. Blockbuster success. They're going to win this generation. It's over. They won. Nintendo in just 15 months has sold 20 million Switch consoles. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And they're not selling as fast as the PS4, but they're right behind. I mean, it's very close. And even though year over year, you can say, well, in the June quarter, it was less than it was in the June quarter a year ago when the device was new. That's fair. But it took them 6 months to hit, or it actually took them 9 months to hit 10 million. They hit 20 million in 6 months. It's kind of incredible. So they've obviously hit on some kind of a successful formula. And then we have Microsoft, who has, I don't know what they have. I think they have the best console in some ways, consoles, but they're using a different kind of success metric. By the way, it is it's still light outside, but it's obviously gotten dark in the house. This is one of those weird things that happen. So it was too bright before, and now it's.
You need a candle, man. You need something there.
A floodlight.
Yeah, I don't. This house doesn't have various things. One of those things is air conditioning.
Yeah.
And one of those is the lights.
It's a strange thing not to have in a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's no longer true that the Xbox One would be the last console generation of Microsoft's, right? That's right. Yeah. So there will be a successor. Yeah.
Right. One of the many things Microsoft, I got to be fair to Microsoft, because honestly, their strategy is correct. They're doing a great job. It's very gamer centric. Backward compatibility is huge. They've done a tremendous job there, and they will continue doing that. So whatever the next console is, it will be backward compatible with the Xbox One. Might be called Xbox One something, and backward compatible with whatever Xbox 360 and Xbox original console games that are now compatible on the Xbox One. So there's a decades-long range of compatibility there, which is really excellent. It's kind of an investment. So when you buy games, especially digital games, for any of those platforms, you know they're going to keep working going forward. But of course, the other thing they're working on is the kind of cloud streaming service, for games, and they're going to kind of baby step into it more than I thought they were going to. But the idea there is the same, that eventually we're going to reach this point where it's kind of hardware agnostic, and you should be able to have a kind of a scalable experience based on the device. And so obviously on the small screen on a phone, it might not be exactly the same as playing it on a 82-inch 4K display, whatever. But that's what they're working towards. So both of those things are in the works, and I don't remember the exact timing, but I want to say it's 2020, not 2019. But yeah, they're working on all that stuff.
All right, of the news and everything, I'm not finding anything else. Am I missing anything, or are we?
You are not missing anything.
Anything hidden behind the fold or below the fold? No, I think we're all good. So then, do we? I guess we might as well get into tips and picks and all that kind of stuff, because there's a bunch of those in here. Tip of the week. I think first we go to you, Paul.
Yeah, so Mary Jo will be delighted to know that I have two tips, and they're both Xbox-oriented, but I will be quick because these are kind of perennial. It's August 1st today as we're recording this, and Microsoft has an Xbox Games with Gold promotion they do every month where they give away 4 games to everyone who has an Xbox Live Gold subscription. Actually, I have to bring this up. I got to remember what they are. They launched it a day early, so as of yesterday, they'll light up nice now. Look like I'm in like Paranormal Activity or something.
Yes.
So the first 2 games are available now. They were available yesterday, but they're good ones too. It's like Forza Horizon 2 Standard 10th Anniversary Edition, which is amazing. Xbox One game, normally $19.99, is available now for free. And Dead Space 3, which is a classic, the conclusion of the Dead Space trilogy, which was on Xbox 360 originally, but backward compatible. It's also available on Xbox One. The other thing that Microsoft does every month is they update their Xbox Game Pass subscription. This is the $9.99 a month. You get your choice of, you get any number of the 100+ games that are in this subscription, and they add games every month. And so they added a bunch of awesome games this month, actually, like Hitman Season 1, Rise Son of Rome, which was one of the Xbox One launch titles, Ruiner, Dead Rising 2, and a bunch of other ones, but you can just check out the article there. But if you subscribe, I sort of consider Xbox Game Pass to be one of the best values for this kind of a thing. It's almost like the Office 365 of video games, but it's also the predecessor to that cloud-based thing I was talking about earlier. The difference between this and the future is that to get, for these games, you have to download to the console, and you can play them offline. Obviously, they're not streaming. In the future, they'll get to streaming, but they don't have that yet. And so the app pick, this is the late edition. I'm on this 3-week trip, and I had various ideas about things I could write about and do. And one of the ideas I had was I was going to try alternative browsers on the desktop, and then of course on mobile as well when they were available. So I was going to try different Android launches. I have all these things I was kind of working on. But in the process of doing this, I went through that thing you do where I need to sync my all my bookmarks over from the browser I'm actually using normally, which is Chrome. If the browser supports this kind of input, I'd like to bring over my passwords as well. That will simplify things greatly. And I did this across a range of browsers. And so I usually have Firefox, Chrome, and Edge on every computer. And then for this test, I downloaded Brave and Opera and Vivaldi. And each of them has, kind of cool things that they do, and they're a good idea. Like Brave, especially, the kind of vibe they give off is good. But in the process of doing this, I also started using the version of Microsoft Edge that's in the next version of Windows, the Redstone 5 version. And every time a new version of Windows 10 comes out, I kind of reevaluate Edge, and I always find it lacking to some degree for whatever reason. And it occurred to me that if I made a couple of small changes, if I actually compromised for once instead of just forcing my way of doing things on the browser, maybe this thing would work out. And I have to say, I've been surprised that this is across both the computers I'm using here, the ThinkPad and the Surface Book 2, that the next version of Microsoft Edge is actually pretty sweet. And it's interesting to use it on the two computers because one is not the next version, one's the current version. And you can see where they made changes. And there's some subtle things, but Edge, for example, today has this goofy interface called the Hub. And the hub is this thing that's like a combination of like favorites, reading lists, and whatever, downloads and history and whatever else. And the ebook system is in there. And I just find it to be like this convoluted pig of a thing. I just want to access favorites, And now you can put favorites in your, your toolbar like a normal browser. And I'm like, actually, that's kind of handy. It can block autoplay of any kind of media, audio or video on the web, which is actually super useful. And it's kind of weird. I intended to play around with these other browsers, and I have, but I found myself going back to Edge a bunch of times. And so on the laptops, at least, to replace the Chrome apps I usually use, I've been using the Windows 10 mail and calendar apps. I've been using the store version of the Twitter app, and seeing it's kind of a weird thing. Like I typically do prefer Chrome overall, but I have to say I've found the new version of Microsoft Edge to possibly, I hate even saying this out loud, but it's possibly even good enough to use on a daily basis. I know. So I'm trying it. We'll see what happens. But if you have found this browser to be lacking and you haven't looked at it in a while, I would say in the RS5 version of Windows 10, you should give it a shot again, because I think they might have actually gotten it to the point where it's decent, except on Mary Jo's NVX2, where it's always going to be terrible.
It's horrible. Horrible.
Well, maybe they fixed that too. I don't know.
You know what? That's one of the things I want to test on the Surface Go. Like it ships with Windows 10s. I'm going to try Edge on there, and I would like to see how it compares to Edge on ARM, because Edge on ARM is not good.
Yeah.
And then, Mary Jo, you have an enterprise pick. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is pretty cool. Paul, listen to this one. Even though it's enterprise, you're going to be interested. So, Taro Alhonen, who listens to our show a lot, was looking in one of the recent Redstone 5 builds at the list of SKUs for Windows 10, and he found a new one, which is called Windows 10 Enterprise for Remote Sessions. He's got screenshots of it. He's got it running. I've seen him tweeting today that he's got it running. So I asked Microsoft, I'm like, hey, is there another SKU Windows 10 coming? We have nothing to share at this time, was the exact quote. So what I think this thing is something I wrote about in March. I wrote that Windows 10 Enterprise was going to get a multi-session capability, which would let people running Windows 10 Enterprise have a small number of users inside their shop or their group or whatever, and they could run apps remotely to them from Windows 10 Enterprise without having to have Windows Server. So I think that's what this is.
Yeah. You just described
Microsoft
Windows 10 Server. That's what it is.
When it is. That's what it is. It's Windows 10
Multiple
Server.
simultaneous interactive users.
Right. But only a small number of them. And they can be running UWP or Windows Store apps remotely to these small number of users. So I think the reason Microsoft won't comment is I'm guessing this is an Ignite announcement, and he just happened to find it in the build and now is running it. So thanks, Taro. That's the enterprise pick of the week. There may be a new Windows 10 SKU, Windows 10 Enterprise for Remote Sessions, coming this fall.
And then Codename Strada. What is that?
Strada. Yeah. Back in 2012, Microsoft introduced a language called TypeScript. And it was created by Anders Heilsberg, Paul's hero, one of his many heroes at Microsoft. When they introduced it, they called it a superset of JavaScript. And just this week, they shipped TypeScript 3.0. So they're continuing to enhance TypeScript, adding lots of new features, very technical features, which I will not attempt to describe, not being a developer myself, but I thought it would be a good time to revisit Codename Strada, given TypeScript 3 is out this week.
Can I just briefly mention Anders and the fact that this guy created Turbo Pascal, Delphi, .NET, .NET framework, the whole thing, C#, right? TypeScript. I mean, seriously? What are you kidding me? Like,
and
Steve
Wozniak, he's an awesome guy.
Was done after the Apple IIe. This guy just kept going. Like,
and he's a great guy. He's such a good guy.
He's amazing. I imagine you know this. You were probably there when this happened, but years and years ago, we were like a PC or something, and he walked in the room and he said, He's like, oh, Paul Throtty says I'm a big fan of your work. And I said, I'm going to tell you something I have never said to anyone from Microsoft. I am also a big fan of your work.
Yeah, where were we? We were at Build or something, and I go to Paul. There's Anders Heilsberg, and he's like, what? And he started like jumping up and down. And he's like, come over with me. I want to talk to him.
Yeah, it was like, oh my god.
It was so cute.
Yeah.
Now I'm excited about this one. A, because it's beer, and I always look forward to your beer picks. But B, because I know this one.
Yes.
I mean, and you probably fully realize we are entrenched in this beer. But talk about it.
Yes, I do.
We're practically swimming in it out here.
You are. You're right next door to where they make it, I believe.
Yep.
Right. So tomorrow is August 2nd. It also happens to be National IPA Day. Yay. I know. I drink a ton of IPAs, as everybody who listens to the show knows. So it's a good excuse to be able to pick an IPA for a beer pick. And I was thinking, you know what? There's so many new gimmicky IPAs like triple hop, double dry hops, has this, has that, has oats, has lactose powder. I'm like, you know what? There's a beer that is like one of the original craft IPAs called Lagunitas IPA. You can get it pretty much everywhere. It's a perfect kind of, I wouldn't call it starter IPA because it is hoppy, but it's not super hoppy. It's not super anything. It's just refreshing, well-made, and easy to find. And so I was like, you know what? That's going to be my national IPA pick of the week, Lagunitas IPA. And they make it right next door to Twit in Petaluma.
They do. It's right around the corner.
The only thing,
it's a good beer.
Yeah.
The only thing good about there being an IPA day is that means the rest of the year is not the IPA day.
See, I knew.
Oh, you're one of those.
He's one of those guys. He's never met an IPA he has liked.
We all like eating rocks. I get it. I'm like literally disappearing in the dark here, aren't I?
Yeah.
You are.
I'm like Ghostface
now. The
now.
more you insult IPAs, you're just going to recline.
Yes, this is happening for a reason, Paul. I liken my own personal relationship with IPA in the same category as my historical relationship with coffee and with red wine. I didn't get it at first. I totally get it now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the more I drank it, the more I understood it, and the more I started to pull out all those different subtleties that the very first time I had IPA, I was like, oh my God, it's so bitter. Why would I want to drink this? I love it now.
The concession I will make to Mary Jo and to IPAs is that as a beer type, it has been brought down by the fact that it's just done badly by too many people. There are good IPAs, and Mary Jo knows, because I gave her one. The home brewery we used to have in Massachusetts, Blue Hills Brewery, made one of the best beers I've ever had. Which wasn't I guess it was a double IPA. Actually, they called it Quarter Mile for some reason, but it was a double IPA. Literally one of the best beers I've ever had in my life, and proof that if you do something right, it can be good. And it's just, I think my issue with the IPA isn't so much the IPA-ness of it. It's that a lot of it's funny you said starter IPA in a way. A lot of new beer, breweries will come on board, and of course they're always going to have an IPA, and especially with the beginner stuff, like it's often not done well, but when it's done right, for sure it can be good.
Yeah, or the intention is I've got an IPA, therefore I'm going to make it the hoppiest, craziest, most bitter, it
is
misses the point.
The things you can add to beer, it is the thing that can impact the taste the most, and it's the kind of the cheapest effect you can do. And so it sometimes it's overdone.
It is.
Agreed.
For sure.
I've had quadruple IPAs, which I have one sip and I have this searing headache. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, I love hoppy, but like there is a limit to, it has to be somewhat balanced. It doesn't have to be really malty, but.
Well, totally. I'm going to be drinking a white wine on IPA day because it's almost 10 o'clock at night.
That's the kind of guy you are.
And that's yes, exactly. That's the rebel that I am.
And contrary to what we might believe, it is still light outside, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It is actually it's cloudy, so it's not, I can't say it's full light like blue sky blue.
I think you need
cloudy.
some flashlights over there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you can, it probably won't rich. Yeah, but
there we go.
It's light.
There you go.
It's light. That's outside.
Yeah.
You're going to do your podcast outside next week.
Yeah, I think you'd have are you going to be there next week?
I am. Yeah, I'm going to be. So the deal is, they have an okay connection here, The router's kind of buried in a closet. They have a little Apple, kind of an older Apple TV that was on a wire, and I thought, I wonder if I could do this. The problem with the wireless connection would be I have to be close to it, and you know how Skype is. 2 hours in, you're on Wi-Fi, it's not working great.
Yep.
I was like, if there's any way I could get on the wire, I sort of thought I'd have to lay on the floor because I didn't. But the thing pulled right out of the wall. I got like 4 feet of it out of the wall, and I was like, oh great. So I set up a little table with the laptop and everything. The problem with outside is I'd be too far. You know, it just would never. The connection out there.
True.
Also,
that's true.
maybe I could sit by the window or something.
Yeah, face the window. Maybe that'll give you just a little bit of extra brightness.
Yep.
Although, is it Reverb Mike in chat is really interested in this new version of Windows Weekly from Bram Stoker. So,
yes, the ghost-faced version of Paul.
Yes.
Did something happen to me? I feel different.
Come back to us, Paul. Oh, we've lost him.
I know. You can barely see you. You're just like a little outline of a face.
Just years ago, we did this. I was in Germany. It was the same kind of effect. Like you could see, if you look back at this show, you'll see it just gets darker. You know, it's just, because, you know, Alex is like, it's a little bright. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about that. That's going away. You know?
Yeah, take an average of the episode. Different samples throughout the episode.
If you go, right. If you go back to mid-show, it's probably perfect lighting.
What is the mean lighting? What is the average? Figure it out. You guys, thank you for allowing me to crash your party this week. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
No, thanks for doing it. It's great.
You bet. Mary Jo Foley, allaboutmicrosoft.com. News, scoops, everything you need there, allaboutmicrosoft.com. And at Mary J. Foley on Twitter. And I didn't say all about Android, by the way.
I know. I was waiting for that.
I was waiting for it, too. I think I finally figured it out, how to not say
You know what, though? We really are all about Android when it comes down to it. So it's okay.
Well, I know there's a little bit of crossover in that Venn diagram.
Phones, we really are. You should have us on about phones sometime. Like this fall when they come out with the new Google phone, because we're both very interested in that. So.
Right on. Let's do it. I will. I'll send out an email and make that happen. That would be awesome. We'll get that scheduled. Yeah, great idea. Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com. I learned last week you are, quote, sporadically posting nonsense. And I think that's a wonderful tagline. So you should definitely.
It's going to be on my grave, I think is what sporadically posting nonsense since 1999.
At Thurrott.com. If you like nonsense and everything in between, go to Thurrott.com. Thank you, guys. This show records every Wednesday. If you want to tune in live, you can. Just go to twit.tv/live. Records at 11 a.m. Pacific, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. Again, that's twit.tv/live. If you want to watch live, you can get in the chat room, irc.twit.tv, and participate with all the other folks watching the show at that moment. And, you know, a lot of people aren't able to watch live, and that's okay because we are a podcast network, first and foremost. So if you go to twit.tv/WW, you can find all the episodes, all past episodes of Windows Weekly, and of which there are a lot. So twit.tv/WW, and you can subscribe, audio, video feeds, everything's there that you're going to need to find and want to find for this show. Once again, Mary Jo, Paul, thank you for inviting me on. Leo is going to be back next week, I believe. Same bat time, same bat channel. And if you want to catch me, I'm all over the network on a number of different things. I'm doing Leo's job today, so I'm going to be on This Week in Google a little bit later today. And try my best to be Leo in his absence, but we'll see how that goes. Anyways, thank you for joining us, and the gang will see you next week on another episode of Windows Weekly. Take care, everybody.